Okay, so we're gonna do a walkthrough video for Admiral. She is our 29-foot Holiday Rambler. It actually is an Admiral Holiday Rambler. That's why we got our name, Admiral. It's 29-foot Class A. With being that it's a Class A, it drives a bit more like a bus than a truck. But compared to our other Class A's, I'd say that this is probably the easiest Class A to drive. And just how the steering wheel drives, it's not as loose as some of our other ones, but also the length, it doesn't swing out as much as a lot of the other larger RVs, obviously. So it's, as far as Class A's, I feel like it's a really great entry level that provides a very low learning curve in order to have a great successful trip. So our first cabinet here, just coming down the side of the RV, we have a storage bin that has some water things in it here. It has your water hose, and it actually has the adapter for the sewer that I just borrowed from another RV. So that is here in this container here. I'm gonna keep that out of the water hose. Your next cabinet is the generator. We do have the generator running. We're going to just tell you about it there. We do the generator running. The operation for the generator is inside the RV. So we will show you how to operate it from the inside. But I always like to point out where the generator is, just in case there's any ever problems that you know where it is, because we will be focusing on the outside portion every time we have questions that need to troubleshoot for the generator. Don't know if you noticed, but this cabinet was actually blowing open. So just make sure that you get these cabinets good and locked. Make sure that they're clicked. One thing that kind of sucks about these cabinets compared to others, you can see that one is blowing in the wind as well. It's one thing, most of the other RVs are cabinets open up. And when they open up, if you don't latch it correctly while you're driving down the road, so what? It's just flapping up and down. But these actually open out. And I had one open driving down the road, and it was kind of funny of how much space in between me and the car next to it was opening. So just make sure that these cabinets are closed properly, and latched or locked. We're doing this walkthrough video at our storage facility, so we actually have a dump here that we can show how everything works. So this red hose that you see here, I actually got out of the bumper. This little cap goes on this here, and the whole hose goes in that bumper, so it's stored there. And then you saw the plastic piece that goes into the ground. So I attached that plastic piece to the other end of the red hose. Then I opened up the back cabinet here. In Admiral, you'll see that you have to go up from underneath the RV in order to get it hooked up in here. And this particular one, I feel like you need to just make sure, because you don't have easy access and you can't see it, I feel like I need to put my fingers around the side to just make sure that everything is connected correctly. And then when I go to dump, I never just pull the handle completely out. I always just pull it out just a little bit. You'll see that there's a black handle and a gray handle. And always do your black handle first. I'm gonna pull it just a teeny bit to get stuff flowing. Make sure I don't see any drips here. Yep, it looks like we're good. And then obviously we're gonna see it coming out over there. But then I'm just gonna pull the whole handle, and then everything is gonna dump into the ground at the storage facility or your campground. So really what you're seeing here is just gravity flow. It's really a balance between solids and liquids in the toilet. And depending on how much water you use while you're flushing the toilet and how much solids there are with the toilet paper, that depends on how well this flows out. If you can imagine, if you use not enough water, there's not going to be enough water to do the swishing mechanism to get out. So I always say every other time you dump, you should do what's called the black tank flush. So to do the black tank flush, what you would do is, while that black handle is open, you could hook a hose up to the side of the RV here. It says Santee flush. I just want to very clearly point out, this is a black tank flush, and this is your city water. Why they decided to be so close together, so where maybe you can get a little bit confused and be tired one day and make a mistake, I don't know. Yeah, but it's not my manufacturing. Black tank flush says Santee flush. Do not use this. So you would hook the hose there up into this Santa flush location. You shove it in, turn this here, and then my hose, yeah, I can kind of show you a little bit, but my hose here at storage is here. So you would just shove it in there and then turn that dial in order to turn on the black tank flush. What that in a sense is doing is spraying water on top of the black tank and top of the inside the black tank so that it will flush it all out and just make sure it's good and clean. Always do the black tank first. So after you do the black tank and the water is now not flowing, always close the black handle, and then you want to open the gray handle. In theory, that is soapy water that's coming from the sink and from the shower. So that's going to clean out the hose. So we have now dumped the gray tank as well. You can see that the water has stopped flowing, but we do have a little unlevel ground here. So I can guarantee you, if I pick up this area right here, it's still a bit heavy. There's still some water in there. So I'm gonna have to kind of inchworm everything from the RV itself to the dump. That's what this little accordion-y thingy is. If you're at a campground that you're gonna be at for a while, you can take this piece out and stretch it out, and it actually provides a little bit of a ramp for the hose to make sure that you have a steady flow going down, so you don't have to inchworm anything out. So I'm gonna do that off video, but keep going with showing you some other stuff. A lot of people really love the idea of an outdoor shower, and I always like to just point out kind of the ugly truth of the outdoor showers. That just think that if you're out here trying to clean off, maybe you're trying to wash a dog, rinse your feet after going to the beach, you are basically standing right where people have dumped their RVs. So sometime over the 50 years that that campsite has been in operation, somebody has had an accident right here where you're dumping, and there is icky stuff all there on the ground. So if you are taking a shower right here, that's maybe not the best, cleanest, sanitized, whatever. So what we always recommend is to grab like a plastic storage bin, or just sand in the storage bin, put the dog in the storage bin, make sure you're wearing shoes, or maybe just don't use the outdoor shower. It really depends on what your preferences are, but I just like to point out that quote unquote ugly truth there. You'll see again, we're at our campground or at our storage facility, so we have water here, and I did put the water hose up to the city water. And again, I just want to point out, I put it in the city water, not in the Santa flush, because this would actually overflow your tanks, and that would be bad. This is actually putting water into the RV. So we do have 3 different ways to put water into the RV itself. We've already talked about this Santa flush and and how this is really only to clean out your tanks and to really be careful to not put anything here. And then we have 2 other water entrances. This one that I'm currently hooked up to, I was actually going to start filling the water tanks, but totally forgot that inside this little cabinet is actually where you fill up the water tank itself. I did just figure out it is the gray key that that opens up that cabinet. You would just take this cap off, and the hose just sits right inside that area. It doesn't screw in or anything. So if we were to just leave the RV hooked up here, this is actually going to be bypassing the water tank and going straight into the RV, not filling the RV itself. Now we always, our family tends to fill and then use it, and then fill and use it, because in reality there's usually water either dripping here before, you can see there's lots of water dripping at our storage facility. So I would hate to see that much water dripping for like 4 days of a reservation. It just seems like such a waste. So I would much rather take and see that water dripping for the time it takes to fill the tanks and turn it off. And yes, I have talked to the storage facility and they're still not fixing it. I don't know what the problem is. But we tend to fill our water tank and use it, and then fill our water tank and use it. So one thing I really want to point out, because as I'm thinking about this walkthrough, I see that we are missing a very important piece here. So right now I'm using our campground water, and I know that I can turn on that spigot to just halfway, and I know that the water pressure is fine. But in reality, a lot of campgrounds out there have really high pressure water, and these pipes are so thin and fragile that you really need a pressure regulator on the hose itself. And so before I started this walkthrough for this video, I looked at the hose so I could show you the pressure regulator, and it's actually not on the hose. So before we send this RV out, I'm gonna grab a little pressure regulator. It's a little valve or a little thing that attaches to the hose. Most of mine have orange rings on them, but there are some of them, some manufacturers that make them with blue rings. So what that means is when you have that pressure regulator on the hose, that at least it's gonna make sure that the water pressure does not exceed the pressure that the pipes can handle. So right now you can see I am filling the water tank. I always say, in theory, your RV should be full with water when you pick it up. You know, sometimes the cleaning crew might use some of the water and it might go from full to 2/3, you know, but we want at least the 2/3 of the full tank of water. Just talking about logistics, when you're camping and when you're on a longer trip, we always like to make sure that our water tank is close to empty when we leave a destination, and our tanks, our black and our gray tanks, are empty as well, because that's a lot of weight that you're carrying with you along your trip. And that's adding, it could add hundreds of pounds to the RV that could really make a difference in your gasoline for your longer trip. If you're gone for a weekend, it's not gonna matter, but for those that are renting for a month and going to Yellowstone and longer distances, the weight is going to matter. So next up, you'll see our gasoline here. The gasoline is just regular, 87, gasoline. You don't need to put anything special in it. One thing to note, that the generator does run off of the gasoline in your tank. So that means that when the gasoline in your tank gets below 1/4 of a tank, it's actually going to shut off your generator. So if you're expecting that you're going to maybe be going into a Cracker Barrel and sleeping for the night, or really counting on that generator for any amount of time, you want to make sure that your gas tank stays full. So this electrical cabinet is here right next to the sewer. There is a 50 amp cable in there that is already attached to the RV. We do have a Mac Daddy surge protector, so that's going to get connected to the campground itself. This RV is a 50 amp RV, but and people will ask me all the time if it will run off of 30. And my answer is always that probably not, because I feel like it's not going to have the full amount of power in order to provide 2 AC units the right amount of power. So if you are going to take the chance yourself that the 30 amp connection is only going to run maybe one of the AC units. So I have put this stinky slinky back in the bumper here. Looking at the back of the RV, there is a very pretty ladder on the back of an RV. No reason to be on the roof of the RV. It is just unsafe. There's AC units, there's things you can trip on. So please don't go up on the roof. This Admiral does have a tow hitch, but I do say that I need you to tell me if you are going to tow anything, whether it be a bike rack or a golf cart or a car, because I need to explain to you the difference in the insurance of what's provided for you and what's not, and just know, what you're doing with the vehicle. So if you would like to tow anything, it is your requirement to let me know. The next cabinet is your propane cabinet. And if you were to take it to Ace Hardware or U-Haul or anywhere to fill it up, you open the cabinet, you park close to this location, they do all the work themselves. There is a gauge outside, and that shows you that it's 3/4 full. Again, we always say in theory, as long as your propane is 2/3 full, we are not going to take it to the station to fill it. There's a possibility we would take it, they would put in a gallon of propane, and it would still say 2/3 or 3/4. Because in Florida, they don't fill anything up. So we will hopefully guarantee you have 2/3 of propane in there, and you are required to having it back at that level when you return. The next cabinet, we have our manual leveling blocks. This RV does have an automatic leveler, but we like to have backups upon backups. So those manual leveling blocks are kind of like Legos. You pile them up, one here, and you put a third one on top to interlock them. And then you would literally put it on the ground underneath the tire and drive the tire up onto it. What we'll notice is that either it's going to be unlevel front to back or side to side. So usually you're only putting levels or putting blocks under one tire, maybe two. Then this is outside of your water heater. This has your outdoor rug and some extra emergency type equipment. Admiral has something funky that even if you're a seasoned RVer, you may not have seen it. So in the outside cabinet that's right by the door, they have two switches. One is the inverter disconnect switch. It's the red one on the bottom. And one is the slide out disconnect switch. Now, I can't really tell you a reason why you might turn off the slide out switch. I think that should always stay in the on position. Maybe during storage, maybe if you're trying to be extra cautious that slides don't come out as you're driving. I don't know, that doesn't happen, but I don't know. I can't think of a reason why you would want to turn off the slide switch. But that inverter disconnect switch, we recommend you leave it in the off position. But if you decide that you want to use it, you then turn it into the on position. I'm actually going to close this cabinet right now and go inside of the AC and finish up the video and talk about it there. You do have a very large outdoor TV as well. Hey, I'm going to show you. This is what it looks like when your water tank is full, other than looking on your sensors inside. So we've been busy doing other stuff and totally forgot about the water. So I'm going to turn that off, but it's also going to flow out of the outside here for a good couple of minutes, while it levels itself out because I overfilled it. So it's not the end of the world. It's just a little safety mechanism that keeps you from flooding the RV itself. So it's kind of a good thing. There is an automatic an automatic step that comes out when you open and close the screen door. It is attached to the screen door. So it goes in and close the door. And there is a button here for the entry step as well that you can turn off when you get into the campground, so you don't have to deal with the annoying step going in and out. So we are inside now. I'm still going to talk about that inverter switch that we saw outside. So the inverter switch will actually invert your battery power from your house batteries to an outlet. So the biggest use that I find with those is that families that are driving down the road, that maybe the kids want to watch a movie while they're driving down the road, or maybe there's a computer or electronics that need to be charged, that inverter switch will invert your batteries that are inside your step to the outlets that are in the RV. But people get very confused. That will still not run your air conditioning units. It still won't run the microwave, and even some higher pulling things that are plugged into outlets like toasters or toaster ovens or even Instapots and stuff. But it will charge a phone, and it will use the TV. And so the reason why I say don't use that inverter is because if you forget to turn that inverter off while you are driving and you don't have a power source, it drains the batteries very quickly. So I always say whoever turns that inverter button on is responsible for turning it off. Maybe set a timer for an hour to remind you to turn it back off again, so that you don't surprise yourself and run out of batteries because you drained them because you were using the inverter. So this main panel by your door is where the bulk of your controls are. So just to walk through each of these buttons, first and foremost, this is having to do with outside and your entry. So there is a porch light that will turn on. If you're, outside, obviously it's fun to leave that on when you're outside at the barbecue or at the campfire, but also if you want to have a light on when you come home to your RV, you can turn that on. I do have the entry step off now. So if I was to open the door, it's actually going to stay out rather than going in and out and in and out. But you do need to make sure that you close that step prior to driving away, or you're going to owe me a whole new step, and they're really expensive. So, that entry step, that entry step button, I always say use it with caution, because you do need to make sure that you turn it off, because it's going to keep it in the outward position and you're going to hit a curb. The next one you have is the entry light. That turned on a light above our head, so that's nice to have there. And then you have your sensors. So how these work is there's little buttons that maybe you can't see. Maybe you can see if I go in closer. So there's a little button here that you push. So when I push the fresh button, see how 4 lights light up, and you'll see at the top it says empty, 1/4, half, 3/4, or full. Well, you saw that we filled up that water tank. It is good and full. Now the next button is the gray tank button. I always say hopefully that says empty. It does. The next one is a black tank. Hey, that says 1/4. But you were out there with us dumping. You know that we dumped that. So just to tell you Jacksonville RV Rentals policy when it comes to sensors, when we check it out, we always hope that all of your sensors say empty, 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 and empty. But when I do my final walkthrough, or whoever does the final walkthrough, if we see that that says 1/3, what we typically will do is we will bring it back to the dump station at our campground, at our storage facility, and we will check it just to make sure it is indeed empty. That doesn't mean that when I come back in, I'm going to push black and that's going to say empty. Those sensors are notoriously wonky. As RVs age, things dry out. You could get soap scum on the sensor or a piece of toilet paper stuck in the sensor. I even felt like one time it was still reading like a water level, and after I dumped it, it was waiting for that water to dry up on the sensor. I don't know. Sensors are wonky. So what we will hopefully tell you is that although it said 1/3, I did check it. It is indeed empty, and we dumped it together in this video, so we know that it's empty. The next one here is the LPG. That says 3/4. So that is indeed 3/4. We verified from the outside. The main, that's the next one. That has the generator on right now. So that's showing you your main battery level. You can't get that right now because the generator is on. If you had the generator off, or you were and not connected to shore power at all, and you push that same main battery button, it will show you how good your batteries are charged. So if you were counting on your battery for power, you're boondocking, you don't have a shore power at all, that's something you definitely need to check. Because when it gets to 1/3, you would better turn on that generator, because you don't want to have your batteries die on you. Next, we have our water heaters. We have the LP gas water heater and then the electric water heater. So that really depends on what you want to use. Do you want to hook up to electric and use the campground, or if you're boondocking or taking doing dishes in the Cracker Barrel parking lot, then you would use your LP. That water takes a long time to get hot. A long time meaning half an hour, maybe 45 minutes to get hot. The next button here you'll see is your water pump. I leave that water pump in the on position. You'll see the light is on. The reason why is I don't want to ever wash my hands or go to flush the toilet and have the water not be on. I leave that in the on position. This is a very important button, and I think that in this particular RV, it is in a very bad place because guests tend to accidentally turn it off. This is your auxiliary battery on and off switch. In most RVs, there's a very huge round off and on disconnect switch that's very obvious. This is a little bitty switch here. Mostly renters are going to keep that in the on position. If you turn that off, then all of your lights are off, your fridge is off, your slides are off, nothing's gonna work. You have disconnected all power from your house batteries. So just be mindful of that. A lot of, again, seasoned RVers, they might get confused and they might think that's like a solar panel or a light or a something. It's not the main power button here. The last one is the generator. Right now you can see the red light. We have our generator on. We turned it on prior to this video. How you run the generator, how you turn it on, is you would push the stop button until that red light turns on. And when that red light turns on, you would then hold the on button down until it starts. You don't want to hold it and the second you hear a chugga chugga, then take your finger off of it. You want to hold it down until it starts. So generators, when they start, they kind of go, and then they're very steady. So you want to hold that button until it is steady. Then when you turn the generator on, I always tell people to watch the microwave. It takes some time for the power to transfer to the microwave. So in this RV, I believe it took about 30 seconds. So there were no lights on that microwave there. So then when the lights turned on in the microwave, you know that you had the proper power in your RV. It's probably one of the most common questions that I get. People get to the campground and they hook everything up, or they turn on the generator and they're not having power. And you know, when they call me and they say, hey, we don't have power, the first question I ask them, are the microwave lights on? And everyone always says, why do you want to know that? I'm not cooking anything. I just want to get set up. No, that tells me that you have the right power without you having to get like voltmeters and power things and take panels off and stuff. So it's just a really easy way to see. For the awning, you have your awning in and out button here. The awning obviously is outside. I'm gonna push the awning out button and you're gonna watch how the awning does open all the way up. It goes out until I believe this one actually stops. So we're gonna see if it gets to that out and stop position. You'll see that these arms are gonna go out and out and out, and see how it has that little thing that rolled down? That is the out position. I stopped it, but I'm gonna push it again and see if it's gonna roll it back in. Oh, it is. So you need to stop it once that little white flap flaps down. Some of them it stops all by itself. This particular one, if you keep going into the out position, it's actually gonna roll itself back in. And you may not think that it's damaging the RV, but eventually after the number of times it's done that wrong that way, it does start to damage things. Plus you're really going to confuse the next renter when they open it, because they're actually going to have to push the in button in order to go out. So just make sure that you stop the awning when that white flap right there flaps down. And just to talk about the awning itself, many of you may have searched through many listings on RV Share or Outdoorsy, or maybe you've rented many times before. Many owners actually disconnect and don't allow you to use the awnings. And the biggest reason why is it's one of the #1 items that gets broken on an RV itself, and it's all operator error. These awnings are not meant to withstand any sort of wind at all. So I always say, if you are outside and you're enjoying the shade and it's really hot, like in order to provide you some shade and some break from the heat, you need that awning. And I don't want to like not trust you and take that away from you. But if you are not sitting outside enjoying that awning, you need to make sure you close it. Because in Florida, you have some really serious storms that will pop up out of nowhere. And if that awning shakes at all, it's gonna damage the awning arms, and then we're gonna have a problem. And the unfortunate situation is that many people say, oh, well, it's gonna be covered by the insurance. Unfortunately, it's not. The insurance is actually collision insurance. So unless you were actually driving the vehicle when the awning was damaged, which we have had happen, somebody drove down the road with the awning open, and that's a very unfortunate circumstance. But unless you're driving when the awning is broken, you are responsible for paying for the awning yourself. So don't ever go inside, don't leave the RV with the awning open. So Admiral has the bed that comes down above the driver's area, and it is up here above the entry here. The buttons are up here, and also the slide, there's two slides. So first we're gonna open up the slide. There's an in and an out, and I'm gonna push the out. And I just wanna show you, I'm pushing the out, and are we seeing the slide open in here? Nope. So the Admiral, it does have to have the brake on and the truck on in order to operate the slides. That seems very strange to me, because I wouldn't want to be, I guess if the brake is on and the truck is on, you're not driving. But, you know, I think it's just a very strange thing. So I'm gonna now put the brake on and the truck on so that we can now open up the slide. You'll see that when you're driving, Admiral has a little walkway, not as much as I would like, but I feel like they wanted to have a larger table instead of a larger walkway. So now I'm pushing that out button and our slide is opening. If you lean that seat back, that driver's seat back, and you're like laying down while you're driving, it could get in the way of the slide. So anytime you are operating the slides, you always want to make sure that there is nothing blocking their way, that there's, a lot of people will put the ladder here. You know, some people will put the trash can in a weird place. I've seen crazy things like brooms that were leaned up against here that get behind the slides when they're opening it. So anytime you're operating the slides, you always want to make sure that nothing is in their way. So Admiral actually has two slides. The second one is in the bedroom. I don't think so. So the second one is in the bedroom. I'm gonna have it up a little bit, maybe not all the way. So this would open up all the way. This is a larger slide. You'll see it's about, gosh, like 2.5 feet. So right now I'm not gonna put it all the way out, but that is where this slide control is, by the back bedroom. And what you'll see is this has a mattress that then is going to unfold out. And I just want to tell you, when I first saw the design of this, I sort of sighed and I thought, oh, it's going to be a really uncomfortable bed. This is probably one of the most comfortable mattresses that we have. It's probably 16 inches, maybe it's 14, and it is so much foam. When you unfold it out, it is one of the most comfortable beds. So this slide goes all the way out, so that bed can outfold here, and this is a king size bed in the back. The next cool feature to look at, and I find this is kind of precarious. Again, bad design. I sort of, when I do these things, I'm putting my foot over here, putting my foot over here, and just really bracing myself and just making sure. Just be very careful. And you kind of have to reach across here. And again, you have a lift up and lift down. So I'm going to push that bed. And it was actually locked in the off position. We're going to push the bed. And again, now look, Is the bed coming down? No. Now it wants to have the truck off. So now you have to go and turn the truck off.
Sleep out there while you're driving.
Yeah, you can't sleep while you're driving. Yeah, but it just, all of these things, there's kind of checks and balances. And so I just like to show these things, kind of the comedy of errors, while I'm doing a walkthrough, so that you can see like, oh yeah, that happened. So now we have the key in the on position. Now we have the button, and now we're gonna push down, and now it should be going down. So this bed sits right on top of these seats, depending on where you have your driver seats up and down. You may need to lean it back a little bit, but this probably is in the lower down position. This bed, unfortunately, is not the most comfortable of mattresses. One of the things that we've done in a couple of our other RVs is we've put a foam, like a 3-inch little foam core thingy on this mattress. But this particular one, when it goes back up, you can barely even have a comforter on it in order for it to go all the way up in the up position. So that little 3-inch little foam mattress patty thingy is just not feasible for that particular bed. So, possibly, on your reservation, if you would like one, we probably have one for you. There's just not really a good place to put it while you're traveling. Maybe you can put it on top of your bed in the back, but I'm not going to guarantee it's going to be there. You can ask for it and we can try to have it. It's mostly kids are going to be up there and they're not going to care so much, but it's just not the most comfortable of mattresses. Admiral has 2 AC units. Why, I don't know, but one of them is up in the front. It's pretty self-explanatory. There's an on and an off button and a heat button. Power, you set the thermostat. Your not microwaves, your remote is there in that basket for the TV itself. It is a smart TV, so you would hook your phone up to it, provide Wi-Fi or Wi-Fi from the campground. The second AC unit is in the back, and it is here. I find that this AC unit in the back is way too powerful for this little room, and it freezes back here. Especially, I've even put it up to like 80, and I still felt like it was cold back here. I don't know if it's because the AC from the front also goes into the back, but just be mindful of the AC back here is almost too cold, if that's even a possibility. A lot of people wonder what this power control system is back here in the bedroom. This is nothing that you want to really be concerned with, but if we were troubleshooting something, this does tell you some cool things that might tell us what might be wrong or what not, but nothing for you to touch. Admiral does have a sound system. It's just a Bluetooth and radio. We have your breakers and fuses down here to the right of your fridge. Your CO2 alarm is down here underneath the sink. And your fire extinguisher is there by the door. Bathroom-wise, Admiral's shower, I feel like it's actually pretty spacious. One of the things that sort of annoys me is that when you get into the shower and you're all ready and you go to close the door, the latch to the shower is actually outside. And so I almost had to get out of the shower in order to close the shower door. The toilet is a standard RV foot pedal toilet. Some people that are new to RVing, that water that's in the bottom of the toilet is by design. If you think about it at home, your toilet has a P-trap, and your sinks underneath your sink, they have little P-traps, and that's your last prevention from getting smells from the sewer into the RV. And so leaving some water in there is exactly that situation. It provides that last barrier for the smells. In order to flush the toilet, you have a push pedal here, and then you can see when you flush the toilet, there's water that goes in. When you flush, I would give it a good maybe 5, 6, 7 seconds, because again, it's all the balance between solids and liquids from your toilet, from your toilet. So in your cabinet here, underneath your bathroom sink, are your toilet chemicals. So typically we will put them into the RV during your walkthrough when we're showing you around. So we have toilet chemicals here. They're in a little pouchy thing like a Tide Pod. You just throw that into the toilet and flush it with, I don't know, like 10 seconds of water. And then we always try to verify that you have enough toilet paper. There are 4, 8, there's lots of toilet paper. But I'm looking at this, Scott, long lasting, now stronger. Oh, here's the dissolve 10 times faster. So this is a septic sinks water toilet paper. Mostly we provide the toilet paper for you because we want to make sure that you're using the proper toilet paper, because if you use something with like Snuggly Bears on it, it's not going to dissolve in the tank and you're going to cause a problem. So anytime you dump the RV, not when you use the toilet for a better terminology, but when you dump and you actually empty your black tanks, you would put some more toilet chemicals in your toilet. So your refrigerator in Admiral, first and foremost, it does have a latch to open and close it. I always tell people when it comes to RVs, you don't have to ever be strong to operate anything in an RV. So if you come up to the fridge and you're like, oh my goodness, it's not opening, you don't need to be stronger. There might be a little latch that you need to open to make sure it's opening. Now, we are in Florida and it's really hot. We don't have power at our facility, so RVs are not plugged in 24/7. So what that means is that when you get your RV, your fridge most likely will not be cold. So the fridges, I typically tell people they take 4 to 5 hours to cool, but we've only been here for about an hour or so, and the fridge is actually almost up to temperature. I'm actually really surprised. So Admiral may cool faster, even though I don't want to guarantee that. And it's actually very deep. It's a good size fridge. We do have a little remote here for your fan. It is the fan that's above your stove top here. I want to really point out, this is not a glass top stove. You do need to open it. And my renter chuckled behind me, but currently right this second, we have 3 that are broken. So, just be very mindful. Please open up the glass top stove. When you go to light the stove, and I can't really do it in the video, I'm just going to show you in theory, you're going to push this in and turn it to the left, to the right button, and see where that lightning bolt is. That's where you want this while you're holding it in. And then with your left hand, you're going to click this and it makes a little click noise, and it's actually what's going to ignite the fire, ignite the burners themselves. So I'm going to turn off the video and I'm actually going to light the burners right now just so we can see, and I'll turn it back on. So these actually lit with one click, which is pretty amazing. Sometimes if the propane bottle gets turned off outside, the propane gets out of the line, and it might take 3 or 4 clicks. And what we also find is usually one of the back burners is the one that it likes to light the first time, maybe because that's where the gas comes in first. And I just want to show you, the oven does light the same way. You push it in, you turn it to that pilot thing, but all your lighting in the oven when you click on the clickety clicks is a pilot light that's under the bottom shelf all the way in the back. And you actually just want that little bitty pilot light just to stay lit. And when that pilot light stays lit after the clickies, then you can turn on the oven and then the whole oven will go floop. The oven does not heat evenly, so just make sure you're not cooking a Thanksgiving turkey. If you're going to do like a pizza or some biscuits, you might find that everything in the center is heated hot, and that everything on the outside still gooey. So just make sure you account for that in your cooking times. You'll see that when you get to the campground, you do have a good amount of space to walk around. The recliners are kind of cool. They have little massages and heaters and adjustments. You know, there's even little lights that the kids have found. I don't know why you would want that, but they're there. They are plugged in behind these recliners. So when renters have called me and says, hey, my recliner doesn't work, I figured out that it just got unplugged back here. We do have a broom and dustpan back behind the things. If you needed an additional bed, this table here, you can unlatch this latch, move these cushions out of the way, lower this down onto this little ledge here, and then that can be used as a table. I always say, like, don't sit on here on the table and put your shoes on. But once you sit and put your shoes on and you're getting ready for bed, when you distribute your weight over the whole bed, it's totally fine. But it's just, this table is not meant to have all of your weight on that one place. There is a nice little cabinet underneath your thing there too. If you need seat belts, the seat belts are underneath here. You would take these compartments out, pull out the seat belt there. And I'm going to show just on here, technically this particular RV does not have an over the shoulder car seat adapter. So that doesn't mean that it doesn't, that you can't have a car seat in it, but it does mean that it doesn't have that over the car seat connector, which makes that car seat, potentially move. Especially with kids, let's have a conversation about safety requirements. Anybody over the age of 12 does need to be seat belted. There are seat belts in these recliners. I have put my hand in their holes and pulled them out. As far as what's in the RV, you do have meager stuff that you would need. It's not every comfort from home, but kind of what you need. There's plates and cups and bowls. We have silverware and some cooking utensils. A dish towel or two. More cooking utensils. Looks like those remotes are down here in the drawer. I'm not sure that's the best place for them, but now I know that that's where they are. There is room. Unfortunately, the trash can that we bought is too big to put under this counter. So we need to buy a smaller one. But for right now, it seems to work fine just right there, giving you more room out here. And I almost forgot, down here, this is a tankless water heater. So you do need to turn it on and off here. And we'll get that turned off on the video. But you can turn the water heater on there. And then under here are your pots and pans. And then you have a nice little cabinet that has room for a pantry. There is a coffee pot and filters and a couple of little extras there for you. So now up in the driver's area, it is a very big front thing. There's a huge glass window. This turns into a huge greenhouse effect. So when you get into your campground, you definitely want to close your shades. There is a button here. It says front shade up and down. So that shade will go down. Funny enough, it won't go down as you're driving. I found that out, not necessarily because I was driving, but because I had it in like the on position while I was here at the storage facility, and it actually knows that you're driving and won't close you in. There is an auxiliary start button up here, and just to kind of explain what that is, that provides you an opportunity that if for some odd reason your truck battery died, it will actually allow you to jump the truck from your house batteries. So you would put your foot on the brake, you would put turn the key like you're turning on the truck while you're pushing this auxiliary start button all at the same time, and hopefully that will get you out of a hairy situation because maybe the lights came on or there was something that was left on. Talking about the lights here, we do have an automatic mode, so you can leave them in automatic, so that, or you can turn them into off. We have your mirror adjustments are here. This little red light is actually a mirror heater. That's pretty darn fancy. I've never had a mirror heater before, but the mirrors, you would adjust them just like normal. Coming to the right of the steering wheel, this is your electric leveler. And the electric leveler, first and foremost, you don't need to level the RV if it's just, like a stabilizer, like a trailer. And a trailer, when you're walking around, it bounces around. But RVs are, Class A's and Class C's are pretty stable. But if your campground is unlevel, as we talked about outside with the manual blocks, you do need to use the leveler or to use this manual blocks, because the refrigerator will not be happy and will eventually not cool properly and eventually break. So in order to use this leveler, you would have the truck on and the brake on. Then you would turn on the power button. And when the power button is on, you would push on the auto level button. And the whole thing is going to go, jan, 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 jan. Don't have anybody walking around while the leveler is trying to work. It's working really hard and, has a really heavy RV. So just let it do its trick. Just to provide you a little bit of a warning, when you go to leave and you push that retract button, some of the RVs, and I don't know that I know this one positively, but some of the RVs, it is a really big jolt and loud noise when you push that retract button. And I just want you to be aware that that could be a possibility. And it's not, you didn't break anything. That's just the pneumatics releasing quickly. And it's going to then release the pneumatics, and then it will bring up those poles. There is a rear view camera and side view cameras. So when you have the truck on and you turn your left-hand turn signal on or the right-hand turn signal on, you'll see one of the cameras. When you put the truck into reverse, the rear view camera will pop up. So it does have those fancy things. But when in doubt, always get out or have somebody spot you. Never rely on those cameras. And I will tell you that at night, especially in the rain, those cameras are basically useless. So unfortunately, that's probably when you want to, have a spotter that doesn't want to be out in the rain. But unfortunately, that's when you need that spotter the most. You can Bluetooth to this console as well, so that you can have your turn by turn, turn left, turn right. But if you want to hardwire to it to see your maps up on the screen, then you would put it into this area here. And this actually is a CarPlay with the center console here. The air conditioning works really well here. To use for air conditioning for your guests, these are pretty small little vents. In order to kind of shove some air to the back, they're kind of small. So, to each their own. Our family, we don't run with the generator while we're driving, but we find that most guests like to run with the generator on when they're driving in order to provide their guests some air conditioner. They will not have air conditioner unless you have the generator on. Just make sure you pay attention to what the generator guidelines are. You only get 4 free hours per day, and each additional hour is 5 hours. So, throughout your trip, just think about, is that hour, is it worth to have $5 for air conditioning for an hour? I would think so, but some people don't think. I don't want you to be surprised. There is a generator operation up here as well. And same way you would operate it in the front, you would push the off button until that lights up, and then you would push the on button until it starts. And then last but not least, up here you have the travel radio. So, while you're traveling, you would put this in the travel button. While you're parked, you would put this in the park button. And that just directs where the speakers are going to be flowing the music. Oh, okay. So I believe on this particular RV, there might be outside speakers as well. I'm not positive, but I think so. And so that would actually play your music outside. But it's really funny when you have it in the travel button and you're playing turn right on this road outside. I think that's kind of funny because you might be telling somebody. One funny thing about Admiral, and I can't decide if I like it or if I dislike it, but over here on the passenger side, there's a window. I don't know, maybe it's kind of cool for the dog that wants to see outside, but driving wise, I find that I'm constantly looking over here because I see something in that little window over there. So I don't know. I haven't decided if I love it or if I hate it. And that is about it. So we're all ready to go with this particular renter. So I'm going to walk around and take my pictures, and I always recommend that you take your own pictures as well. So this particular renter, we don't need the generator right now. His guests are not in the car. So I'm going to make sure that the generator is turned off. I know that I'm going to immediately go and turn off the air conditionings as well. Please make sure anytime you turn off the air conditioning or disconnect from the power, or turn off the generator or disconnect from the power, that you have your AC units off as well. So I'm going to turn off the generator. That's going to turn the AC and everything off inside. I'm now going to go. I'm going to turn off the AC here. This particular RV does have 2 AC units. So I'm going to turn off the one in the back as well. Turn that to off. As far as travel ready, you really want to make sure that there's nothing on the countertops. If you have like a coffee pot, your favorite Keurig coffee pot or an Instapot, put it in the sink. Make sure there's nothing on the counters, especially nothing on the glass. Even stuff on the table, when you put on the brakes, it tends to fly off of the table. And you'll see when we walked out that step opens up. And now I'm just going to start taking my pictures outside the RV as well, making sure that all of the cabinets are good and closed and locked. I saw as I was driving out here that the back cabinet was indeed open, so that's something to check. So we're going to make sure that this is closed. This back cabinet, I feel like it's difficult to close, so sometimes you need to shove it a little bit in order to close them properly. You'll see that the power cord is in its way. So we always want to make sure that there's nothing in its way and we can get it closed. Again, walking around the RV, the number one safety things for your RV are the tires. So you want to make sure that those are properly inflated. Making sure that I'm taking all the pictures to document the before condition. So if you see any specific like blemishes or scratches, make sure you take those pictures yourself so that we have good adequate walkthrough or before pictures, so that when you come back, you know that we have that you didn't do that exhaust pipe. And I'm not going to be offended at all if you're nitpicky and looking at every single thing to say, oh, is this a scratch? Oh, no, it's not. So again, we have Admiral. It is our 29-foot Class A. It's a holiday Rambler, and it is all ready to go on its trip. Happy camping.